I would now like to ask Minister Sibal to come to the podium. Minister Sibal has other commitments, so he will not be with us for the full day. But again, thank you, Minister Sibal, for taking the time to be with us this morning, and welcome.
The distinguished Mr. Gary Goodyear, Minister of State for Science and Technology, Mr. Paul Davidson, President and CEO of AUCC, Mr. Stephen Tuke, President, University of British Columbia, and other distinguished guests gathered here this morning. I'm absolutely delighted to be here with you this morning, and even more so when you are forging this very unique partnership with the universities at this end. When 8 universities get together in Canada to forge a relationship of the kind that you've mentioned, I know that this will really enormously benefit both ends, because it's at the higher end in higher education, at the postdoc level, that we need the kind of collaborations that will take knowledge in both countries forward, and therefore I think that this is something that we would like to take forward as the years go by. I remember that way back in June 2010, an MOU was signed between Canada and India in higher education when the Prime Minister of India and the Prime Minister of Canada were present. And I think it's that sort of momentum that was initiated at that point in time that is taking this partnership forward. And over the years I've had some visits to Canada, and I've had distinguished ministers from Canada visit me. And the central piece of that has been, how can we take our collaboration forward in the area of education? I, however, would like to perhaps put on the table things that you might not be aware about. Because I think that even this cooperation is minimalist in nature. Because, we're talking about 50 students and awards for 50 students. And as India sort of takes its education agenda forward, on which we are on fast track at the moment, the kind of numbers that we're talking about at this end are mind-boggling, even to me. We have about 220 million kids who go to school. And by 2030, we'd imagine that about 40 to 45 million will be going into higher education. And the requirement for the increased number by 2020 would be that we would have to set up another 800 odd universities. 800 to 1,000 universities in the next 10 years. And also would have to set up around 40 to 45,000 colleges, as opposed to the 26,000 that are already here today. Because what's happening is that India, as you know, is perhaps the youngest population, has the youngest population in the world. About 546 million kids, people are less than 25 years of age. About 760 million people are between the ages of 15 to 60. And so what's happening is that at the bottom of the pyramid, people are going to get empowered as they move up. And as they move up, after K-12, they're going to need opportunities for skill development, for vocational training, for higher education, because that's the productive force that's going to generate the Indian economy as we move forward. And this is really the reason why they say that by 2050 we would certainly be either the second or the third largest economy in the world. This is the reason why countries around the world have recognized the emergence of India. President Obama talked about it yesterday. This is why there is dynamism in our bilateral relationships with major powers around the world. This is the reason why around the world people are looking at Asia as the one that's going to generate economic growth in the 21st century. And the reason why we'll generate that economic growth is just the sheer numbers that are going to emerge as productive forces in the Asian economy. If you really look at it from any standpoint, with 1.2 billion people in India and 1.3 billion in China, we obviously at this end have the largest market in the world. What we don't have is technology solutions at the high end. What we don't have is technology solutions that are accessible and affordable. What we don't have are solutions for the ordinary man on the street whose lives have to be improved if India or the global community is going to bring about the kind of equity we need both in our economic, social, and political system. And that can only come about through the kind of collaborations that are being forged as we talk this morning. And the reason why I mention this is that whereas it's a great thing and it's a matter to be proud of that Canadian universities are here and you, Mr. Minister, are here for this very unique relationship, I think that we have to sit together separately and decide as to where education is going to go and where education cooperation is going to go in the next 20-25 years. What's the kind of university that will develop in the 21st century? Will it be a brick and mortar university like the ones that we've built so far? Or will there be virtual universities? Will there be the kind of course curriculum that we follow at both ends? Or will there be a unique course curriculum that serves the common needs of humanity? Because I believe that the challenges that are confronting us in the 21st century are quite unique. Quite unique because I don't think that at any time in the history of civilization have we been ever confronted with these unique challenges. If you really look back 100 years, look at the turn of the century, there was a new vision at the turn of the century because the 20th century required the destruction of the old and the building of the new. The Russian Empire, the Tsars were being challenged. The unification of nations in the 19th century was over. The unification of Italy was over. The unification of Germany was over. So there was the decline of the colonial empires and the rise of Germany and Italy. That changed the paradigm of the 21st century. That, of course, led to wars. But it was a new effervescence, the rise of science and technology, the flight of the Wright brothers in the early 20th century, the satellite technologies, the discovery of the mouse in 1964. These are all new things that happened in the 20th century to meet the challenges. But suddenly at the turn of this century, we realize that the past has collapsed. We are not quite sure what the uncertain future has to bring for us. And so we are in the midst of a dialogue where we believe that the past has collapsed. And we believe that we need to forge new relationships, new partnerships for an uncertain future. What is that uncertain future? How should we deal with it? How should we talk about it? What should be that dialogue? Should we continue to talk to each other in the fashion that we did in the past? Should our university and education system not need a new kind of revolutionary transformation, both in thought and practice, as we move forward? What would be the kind of teaching, the kind of curriculum, the methodologies of teaching, the nature of learning? Will that not change in the 21st century? Are children not entitled to decide that what they need to do is to discover what they are best at and taken forward for what they are best at, instead of testing them on issues that they're not interested in? So how do we actually grapple with those challenges, and how do new economies and emerging economies actually, with the kind of populations that we have, actually deal with that situation? How do we build our new cities? How do we manage our water systems? And I think that education will have to be more solution-oriented. At one end, we need to break new frontiers of knowledge, because it's the new frontiers of knowledge in nanotechnology and biotechnology and new forms of materials that is going to actually decide as to how we're going to live in the near future. So that's one partnership that's absolutely necessary around the world, not just with one set of universities, but with universities around the world, because that sharing of knowledge will lead us to conquer the new frontiers of knowledge. But that's one part of the story. The other part of the story is, how do we grapple with problems of poverty? How do we grapple with problems of shortage of water? How do we grapple with problems of global warming? How do we grapple with problems of energy? So therefore, there has to be a more solution-oriented approach as we move forward in the area of education. I don't think that we have actually grappled with that issue around the world. I don't think we've sat around the table and had a dialogue on what kind of solution-oriented knowledge parameters need to be looked at as we move forward in collaborating in the area of education. And I think we need to do that. And I think Canada and India are ideal partners, because we know the enormous capacities that Canada has, especially in the field of agriculture. I know that agriculture and food security is going to determine, in a way, how we solve our problems of endemic poverty around the world. And so we need huge investments in solution-oriented technologies for agriculture. And I don't want to just go on and on. I just wanted to place before you my vision as to how we in the global community need to move forward. And whereas we exult and we congratulate and we think that this new partnership, this unique partnership with Canada, as evidenced by the agreements that you're going to have, and I believe there are 4 of them, while we exult that, I think we need to look back, think about what we need to do together in the future. And I think that's the thought with which I will leave you, as I will have to face some thoughts to answer in Parliament very soon. But that's, I think that what we need, Minister Goodyear, is to take this relationship forward, start thinking about these issues, maybe set up a group, a working group, within academia, as to how we forge this relationship and take it to another level altogether. And I think that both countries are ready for it. I know that the enormous synergy that we have with the Canadian people. I know the enormous affection that we have for each other. And with the kind of levels of comfort that I see between the peoples of India and Canada, I don't see any reason why this particular partnership can actually be catapulted to a new trajectory which hopes to deal with the issues that we have not yet and the global community has not yet grappled with. Thank you very much.